Hi, I'm Trisha at Club Scrap. Welcome to the Nested Strips 5x7 formula and gift box workshop. We're going to have a great time learning a very clever formula that will help you be more efficient in making some beautiful cards. Let's get started. First, let's take a look at our project. It's really beautiful. I love this teal color. It's probably my favorite color in the whole wide world. And we are going to be making this gift box with a lid that's been decorated. And then it'll have the base that holds any card up to 5x7 plus their envelopes. And our Craft-A-Long kit includes the envelopes, so that's a total of 6 cards we'll make. 2 smaller cards with sentiments on the outside and the inside. And then 4 5x7 cards. Also very, very beautiful. You're gonna love this set. So from my kit, I'll set aside the envelopes. To stay organized today, I'm gonna be using an accordion pocket file. So this has vertical pockets that I can keep under the base of my trimmer, and then all those pieces get filed away without taking up a lot of space on my work surface. If you don't have it, don't worry about it. Just grab some sticky notes and label A, B, and C for 3 different piles. And it's kind of a nice approach. So what I like to do with all of my projects is plan ahead so that I can do all the trimming first, then all the scoring, and then all the assembly. So for example, if you like to hang out with your family while you work on crafty things, you could do all of that mental prep work ahead of time, the trimming and the scoring, and then just bring your project into the living room and work on it with your family. It's kind of cool. So let's get started by organizing the paper into the order we're going to be trimming it. And we're gonna start out with that beautiful sheet of teal. So 1 teal, and then we're gonna go to the rust. 1 sheet of rust. 1 sheet of that pretty gold color, and 1 brown. Then we'll find the ivory, the other teal. There is a sheet of carefully mapped out printed cut-aparts. We'll put that next. I'm going to put that sheet in my pile upside down. Then let's take the 8.5 by 11 ivory, and finally we'll end with our gorgeous Yellowstone print. So everything face down. Now I'm going to flip that whole pile over back to the teal where we started, and that will be the first sheet we'll trim. Now, since this paper is going to grow up to become a card base, before I trim it, I'm going to pay attention to the grain direction. So later on, when I fold this paper, I'm going to be folding with the grain, my favorite thing ever. To find that out, I'm going to hold that paper by the edge and give it a little wiggle. And then I'm going to hold it by a neighbor edge and find that it's a lot more wiggly in this direction. So when I put this paper in my trimmer, I wanted to wiggle or have it pushed together most easily from the top of the trimmer to the bottom, and then just drop it in. Now, since we're going to be trimming another sheet of paper the same way, I'm going to grab the next one, which is this rust color, and I need to check that grain direction again. So you see the difference? If I just hold it by this edge, it's stiff. See it fall? So now I know that the grain direction is dipping from top to bottom. In my instructions, if the grain direction matters, I will put an arrow right on the diagram. The idea, though, is that if you don't really like to read instructions, just hang out with me on the videos and then I'll walk you through it, okay? So let's stack these papers neatly together, lift the blade of my guillotine trimmer, and by way of quick reminder, the top row of numbers here are centimeters, bottom row underneath that are inches, and we need 11 1/4. So I'll find the 11 and then go left 1 column to 11 1/4. Push firmly on that bar to stabilize the paper and give it a slice. Then I'm going to move the paper down to 7 inches. Then rotate the 7-inch piece so it's horizontal and trim at 10. I always like to stabilize, especially when I'm using 2 sheets of paper. And this is a 7 by 10. Now, when that's folded in half, it becomes a 5x7 card base. Ta-da! Set these aside to be scored. And then this longer piece here, we're going to place that in the pocket or pile labeled B, as in Bravo. And next, let's pick up this longer, wider strip that remains. A couple of cuts here, so just stick with me. The first one is at 11 1/2, 5 1/4. So that's 5 plus 1 column to the left. And then I want you to rotate this paper so it's vertical and trim at 4. All right, this piece of paper you just made that's in your trimmer base, place that in pocket or pile labeled A. There are some tiny little pieces that fell from the end. And then we're going to take the larger panels that fell. We're going to put those in pocket B, Bravo. And we have just some little sniglets here. These are scraps. You can, get rid of them or maybe try to find a different home for them. Guess what? We get to do that all one more time. So I'm going to take this gold colored paper. It's more droopy in this direction. I want it falling top to bottom. And same for this brown. Oh, here, that definitely is almost a visible thing that you can tell. So 2 more sheets together. We'll trim simultaneously at 11 1/4 and 7. Stabilize firmly. Now rotate so it's horizontal. Trim at 10. You just made another pair of 5x7 card bases. Set them aside to be scored. Grab the long piece, place it in pocket B, Bravo. And now we have the twisty turny cuts here. The first one is at 11 1/2. Then 5 1/4. Don't move that paper. Okay, now you can move it. Turn it so it's vertical and trim at 4. Okay, this goes in pocket A, the one that fell that's larger for B, and you have your remaining series of small scraps, very tolerable number of scraps there, so I'm happy with that. Next, we'll take that sheet of ivory, check the grain, and this time, the direction of the grain should dip most easily from left to right. So we were doing it this way, now we're gonna do it this way. First cut is at 11, and then 10. And that's it. This piece needs to be scored. I'm going to set it aside. That's going to become the base of our box. Now these 2 strips are going to be important later on. I'm just going to set them aside in their own little pile and keep track of them. And next we'll grab the sheet of teal. Once again, I want the grain for this one going from left to right before you place it in your trimmer. Cut at 10 3/4. So that's 10 plus 3 columns to the left. 1, 2, 3. Stabilize. Then 9 1/2. So that's 9 plus 2 columns left. 2. And then bear with me here. 9 1/8. Now I know a lot of you hate those 1/8 inch measurements. It's not so bad. Just stick with me here. 9 1/8 is halfway between the 9 and the 9 1/4. So there's a little guy right there, right in between. So I'm just going to go, going to the left of the 9, halfway to the 9 1/4. Okay, one more. So rotate the paper so it's horizontal. And our next cut is at 11 1/8. So it's the same exact thing. So 11 plus halfway to the 11 1/4, that's 11 1/8. Now I've got myself a paper that's gonna grow up to become my box lid. So set that aside with the other pieces to be scored. You're gonna find a small and a really small piece, that's a scrap, set those aside. And then you've got these wider strips, put them with the ivory strips you made earlier. Now we've arrived at this cut apart, and just a quick reminder, we have these little edges on the outside perimeter of our cut aparts that need to be removed. Because if we have our large commercial trimmer do it for us, it's never quite accurate enough with the variances to make all this work out like it needs to. It's just how it is, unfortunately. So there's a little hash mark here and it says remove paper outside of corner cutting guides. I'm gonna just guesstimate where that's gonna land because this paper is so large right now I can't even really see the outside edge of my blade. So I'm gonna guess, and I'm gonna cut a little generously on that corner and then rotate the paper to the next edge. And now I will be able to see the outside edge of my blade at the top and the bottom edge. So I'm looking right here and I'm looking right here and I can see where that line is and how it lines up with my trimmer blade. By the way, these are self-sharpening blades, so I never have to worry about changing them, which is kind of awesome. I rotated and now I'll trim again. And this rotation, I should be able to look to my 12. And indeed, it lines up nicely on this edge. And then one more rotation, looking at my 12. I'll shave off that last little bit. And now I have these little scraps I can get rid of. Before we trim these into individual elements, I want you to make sure that it says, here's to another year of adventures on the right. Okay, so our first cut here is going to be at 8 3/4. And you're going to slice right between all those images, so watch for that. And then finally you'll trim at 5. Now take the piece in the trimmer right now and rotate it so it's horizontal. And we just got to separate these into fourths by trimming at numbers divisible by 3. Can you tell I like math? All right, so we'll start at 9, and then 6, and 3. So even if you don't like math, I've done the math for you, so you don't have to like it. You just have to follow along. All right, so here we have these 4 sentiments. Those are going to go in pocket B. Bravo. And pick up the next strip. Here we have all these little sentiments. Make sure thinking of you is on the right. And we're going to trim every 3/4 of an inch. So I'll help you with that. 11 1/4. 10 1/2. 9 3/4. 9. 8 1/4. 7 1/2. 6 3/4. Now, a quick note, if I'm going way too fast for you, that's understandable. And if you're watching this on YouTube, after the live is over, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can hit your settings button and then hit playback, change the speed to 0.75. It'll really slow me down. You're gonna love it. So these all piled up here. We've got 1, 2, happy birthdays. Those both go in pocket A. Then you have thank you, happy trails, and you mean so much. Those go in B. Now this one, this thinking of you, it's a spare. So if you don't want to use one of those other sentiments, you can replace it with thinking of you, and that'll be fine. I'm just going to set that aside. Okay, we have this piece here. This is going to go in pocket C, Charlie. And then we have this next piece. Place it in the trimmer so the words happy trails are on your right, and trim at 9 and 4 1/2. Both of these, pocket A, and the happy trails, pocket C, or pile C. So next up we have that ivory 8 1/2 by 11. And I've got a little time-saving trick I want to show you. It's not really that big of a time saver here, but in situations where you're making a lot of holiday cards or something, or a lot of invitations that are folded, here's what you do. You get your score pal out, and you place this vertically into your score pal, and score at 4 1/4. Then get rid of your score pal, and place this back into the trimmer horizontally, and cut at 5 1/2. So now you got 2 cards, you only cut once, and you only scored once. Cool, right? So if you multiply the time savings there over like 100 cards, you're gonna save a lot of time. Place both of these in pocket A, and for now, we're finished with our trimmer. So I'm gonna support my accordion pocket file, which is kind of being supported by the trimmer, and then from now on, I'll lay it on its back. Now, do you remember those strips we made earlier? I'm gonna grab those, and I'm also going to get my bookbinding glue. I usually keep some in a needle tip applicator because it's a little bit more precise for the glue application. And I'm gonna place some bookbinding glue all the way across this ivory strip. And I'm gonna nest it onto one of my teal colored strips. So however you can do it to where you're comfortable, I'll visibly try to line that up, centered, and going across this teal. Now, if you're using a different type of adhesive, what's kind of critical in this process is that there is adhesive across the whole thing so that it stays put when we do our little technique. So again, I'm just squiggling, and I find that rather than using, my ATG tape, this is the most economical type of adhesive. You're gonna love it for all kinds of projects, like anything from like gluing metal to your pages, anything like that. It works so well. Charms, plastic, stuff like that. Okay, I'm just gonna, when I have an overhead camera, I can't lean so much over my project, and sometimes it's a little bit harder to see. Okay, so now I have my strips nested with my bookbinding glue. The next thing that's going to come in handy is one of our grid rulers or a ruler, just so that you can measure. I'm going to take this beautiful print and I'm going to rotate the print so that the top of it is on my left. So to me, this is the top because there's text here that says National Park, and I want the top of the print to be on my left, or rotated counterclockwise 1 turn, you know, whatever way works for you. I'm going to take my grid ruler, and what I want to point out here is that these two solid lines across the middle of the ruler, those are the inch marks. And the midpoint of this particular ruler, which is 3 by 14, the middle of this is at 1.5 inches. So what I want to do is set this ruler down on my work surface so it's 1.5 inches from what is now the top edge of this paper. And when I was in kindergarten, when I first learned how to measure to make a line, I would have measured this way. I would have gone 1.5, made a mark at the 1.5 here, made a mark at the 1.5 here. Then I would have rotated my ruler and connected those lines. But if you use a ruler like this that has a grid, all I need to know is where the 1.5 inch mark is on that grid and just place it down. And now I know it's exactly where it needs to be, and it's nice and level. There are no imperfections in the placement, really. I'll take my bookbinding glue now and I'll add some of this adhesive the same way, just squiggling all the way across. And I'm going to push pressure on my ruler and drop the strip onto the paper in that spot. Now I have another strip here, so this one needs to be placed 7.5 inches from this left edge. Well, this ruler is only 3 inches wide. How's that going to work? Let me show you. I have a trick. So I'm going to take the ruler and I'm going to put it across the bottom edge of my paper. And here's my 7. Halfway to the 8, there's my 7.5. Okay? So if I take this strip and I just rest it where that 7.5 is, I can't guarantee it's straight. So what I'm going to do is hold on to the strip, rotate the ruler, and place it on my paper and make sure, and it wasn't quite straight, make sure that the grid of the ruler is aligned with the edges of my paper. Now I know it's nice and level. It's also 7.5 inches from the edge, from the left edge of the paper. I'll add my adhesive to the strip, press down on the ruler, rest this along the edge of my strip, and now I have it perfectly placed. Ta-da! Ruler tricks with Trisha. Let me grab my trimmer one more time. Now this can be a little tricky, so just go carefully along with me. I'm going to place this in my trimmer the same way it was just on my work surface, with the strips running vertically, and then this one is 1.5 inches from the edge. We're going to cut at 6 inches. So kind of right down the middle of that sheet of paper, right? Now rotate the piece that's in your trimmer base right now and cut it at 8. Make sure you stabilize. And 4. I'm going to point out I have just a little bit of overhang here, so I'm going to rotate this and just kind of give it a little bit of a shaving there. I love that my trimmer can do that. So I have a nice cut edge on both sides. It's just absolutely perfect. Look what I have. I have 3 mats for 3 cards just made instantly. Those are going to go into pocket B. Bravo. Now I have this other piece, and since we're making cards of different sizes, I had to strategize a little bit here. So just come along with me. We will cut this piece at 11.5. 11.5. 7 3/4. And 4. Once again, I'm just going to rotate and just take off a little excess from that end. Beautiful. This one, the 4-inch one, that's going to go also in pocket B with our friends. Then you have these two. These are a little narrower, and I'm going to trim, I'm going to place them in this way so that it's more to the left, or you could do it from either end, I guess. We're going to trim these at 5. And then the other one at 5. There, now I have 2 panels for card set A, and just some little scraps that fell from the end. Before we move on to our card assembly, we need to do a little bit more scoring. I know we had that score pal out earlier. And I'm going to start out with the paper that should be on the top of your score me pile. This one is the teal, and we need to score at a kind of a weird measurement, not too bad. It's 7/8 of an inch. So 7/8 is going to be the 7th channel on your paper. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The 7th channel on your score pal. And I'm going to score that and also at 1 3/4. So 1 3/4 is marked on my score pal, so that's pretty easy. And I want to do that from all 4 edges. So I'll rotate the paper and score at 7/8, 1 3/4. Score again, 7/8, 1 3/4. One last rotation, 7/8, 1 3/4. This can go in pocket C. And here we have the large ivory on your score me pile. This one we're going to score at 1 1/8. I mean, don't you love these numbers? 1 1/8, 2 1/4. Rotate, 1 1/8, 2 1/4. Rotate, 1 1/8, 2 1/4. One more time, 1 1/8, 2 1/4. This piece can also be placed in pocket C. Now we just have our 7 by 10 card bases. So those will go in horizontally, score at 5. And again, on the gold, score at 5. Once again, on the rust, score at 5. And finally, on the teal, score at 5. These can be placed in pocket B. Now we're ready to do our card assembly. We'll assemble the smaller cards first, so I'll take everything out of pocket A. And first things first, we have our card bases, and the rule of thumb is that the bump of the score line goes on the inside of the fold. That's how I plan everything out for you. So when you fold this in half, just make sure it's nice and level and make that crease. There's the bump, goes on the inside of the fold. So the best way to remember that is to just memorize the term bury the bump. Nice alliteration there. Okay, so now I have my 2 card bases, and from that pocket, we've got 4 colored panels. So it's kind of up to you how you want to do this. So like, I think that this teal panel is really, really pretty. And I like the way this gold panel looks with the paper. So I'm just gonna put this here and this here. Then each panel will get a happy birthday. And each card will get an innie and will be lined on the inside too. So maybe you're thinking, all right, but this paper's too dark. So you want to do the brown on the outside of the card and yellow on the inside so you can write on it, or you write here. I mean, you got all kinds of different options. It's your own card, right? So at this point, all you need to do is assemble both cards. So this just fits right edge to edge within that nested area. And you can work in pairs if you want. So cool. Then you can flip this. And I used the bookbinding glue for that just because those are kind of narrow pieces and I want to make sure that the adhesive is on nicely. So then I can nest this onto here. One of the things I do like to do is use a grid ruler. This one's a 2 by 8 size. Since the reveal along the edge of this panel is 1/8 of an inch, that's 1 cube on my ruler. And that way I know my pieces are attached to the card level. And I've talked to you about this before. Maybe if you've been to one of my classes, you know that I have this issue with gluing things onto my cards at an angle when I think that they're straight. So I add the panel to the card, I walk away and I come back and like, I was pretty sure that was going to be straight. Well, I don't have that problem anymore because I just use my ruler to double check and I can just place it right on there so easily. So I hope by now that we've gotten this far, you've seen the beauty of the making of all of those panels for the cards. Make sure it goes on right side up. All at once, all at the same time. We made all 6 card panels with double nested strips going across. How cool is that? Now at this point, let's see, I'm on to the inside of the card now, and I can apply my adhesive to the inner sentiments. And this reveal, I believe, is, let's see, 3/8 of an inch. So that would be 3 cubes on my ruler. And for those larger reveals, that's where the ruler really comes in nice to help with those. I keep trying to do things upside down. There we go. Then I'll just flip these over, add my adhesive, and I'm going to eyeball the placement of this right into the inside of the card. So nice. I love it. I've got 2 completed cards just like that. Now let's empty everything out of pocket B. We've got our card bases there. Now we know the rule of the score line. So just make sure that you fold with the bump of the score line. Where? Say it with me. Bury the bump. Bump the score lines on the inside of that fold. Okay, here we go. And the brown, the green, and the rust. Now, if you want to follow the same color arrangement as the instructions, you can put the rust card out, then the gold, then the brown, and the teal. Then I'm taking the larger colored panels, and we'll put the teal here, then the rust, then the gold, and the brown. So did you see that? So this was teal, going around back to card, this is card 4. Going back around to card 1, I'm using the color from card 4, the color from card 1, and just bringing it forward so I can exchange all these wonderful colors. Now we have those prepared panels. Look at that. I mean, it would take so much more time to put nest, nest, nest. And now all we have to do is add our sentiments. We've got "you mean so much," "thank you," and "thank you, happy trails." Now we're going to incorporate another color into the card. So I'm going to go brown, teal, rust, and gold. And then I'll add the inner sentiments. We've got, "I was just counting my blessings and thought you should know you are one of them. Your kindness brightened my day. Thank you for being such an amazing friend. And do not pet the fluffy cows." Now, normally what we could do is just assemble all these cards together, but they're all the same. So what I'm going to do to save a little bit of time right now, and you can do this too if you take my classes, is if you're watching the video, just go get this far. And then again, when you're having that assembly time with your family, when you don't have to think so hard, then these cards are like ready to go. You can just grab your adhesive, grab your pile of envelopes, and just enjoy the process of assembling your finished cards. I love it. Okay, so let's just do this one together, this first card together, and that will act as the sample for all the rest of the cards. And again, it's just not complicated. So we will add adhesive to the sentiment. And this one is going to be centered within the area since these panels are wider. The panels measure 4 by 6. Nice and easy, right? Then we can nest this onto our teal panel. And I believe, again, this is a 1 cube reveal, and I'll add the adhesive to this. And the nice part is if you want to do batch assembly, you just do all that adhesive, just clip along, and it's super fun and easy. This time I'm going to do the 3, 1, 2, 3. Yep, that fits. You could add ribbon, you could add more embellishments to this, but sometimes it's nice to have a basic card, never have to worry about is it going to get flagged for extra postage by the post office? Not if you don't add anything to it. So, or you could add a very simple ribbon embellishment. I'm even going to use the ruler here to add this inner liner here, this contrasting color. And this will be my final. And I think the reveal is 1 inch. So that's the center of my 2x8 ruler is 1 inch. Yes, it's 1 inch. Okay. That was pretty easy, wasn't it? You have to admit. Don't you love this whole process? It's so fun. Now, as promised, this formula is not just for cards. It's also a gift box so that your cards are ready for the seasonal gift giving time. So let's take the stuff out of pocket C. Let's turn these papers over so that we can see the bumps of the score line. So on the teal and on the ivory, I can feel and see the bumps. And then you'll need some kind of scissors. I'm going to use one that I have dedicated just for paper. It's kind of small, but it'll work. I'm going to pick up this teal piece here. or whatever color you're working with. And I'm going to make sure that it's vertical. So it's like portrait style. And geographically, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 vertical score lines. And across the bottom, we have 2 horizontal. And then over here, we have 2 horizontal lines. Just make sure we always keep that geography, keep it portrait style. Now, 1, 2, 3, the third score line, I'm going to just enter to the left of the score and angle my way up to the second intersecting line. Then I'm going to angle it back to the intersecting line from the other side of the vertical score to create a small dart. And I was just filming another class and I mentioned that I used to put darts in fabric with my mom when we were cutting patterns on our kitchen table when I was little. I love that. It reminds me of doing that. Now I'm going to enter again just to the left of the fourth score line, make my way up to the intersecting score, and then come in from the edge here, remove the score line itself and angle toward. So I remove that whole corner. That's the shape we're removing. Now over here, I'm going to go in at the second score line and repeat that dart, make the dart. Stop when you hit the second intersection. Then I'm going to go to the right of the first score line and stop at the same place and take out that corner. Now I have a picture of this on page 2 of your instructions of exactly how these pieces are removed. Now we have to repeat that all one more time. Well, actually 3 more times because we're making a base too. So rotate the paper 180 degrees so that the 2 tabs that you made are pointing up. And 1, 2, 3. I always like to start on this right side for some reason because I think the left side supports me more if it has all of its pieces intact. And take out the corner to create that tab. A little bit of paper here to remove. Okay, and then I'm going to go to the second score line and make the dart. So again, by the dart, I'm basically meaning just take out a V-shaped strip that removes the score line. Then I'm going to remove that score line and the corner. That's beautiful. That is ready to become a box lid. Now we have the ivory. This is a little harder for you to see, but it's the same process. So I'm back with it positioned vertically, removing my dart and my corner. Take that out. Go to the left, go to the second vertical line, remove the dart. And maybe you've taken some other classes with me too where I've made boxes, and this is basically how I make all my boxes if they're not square. A square box, you can do some other creative stuff with origami style things. Now I have 2 tabs pointing upward. I'll go to the third line here, to that corner, take it out, take out the corner, and then finally my last 8th and final corner for the base. Come in from the side. Ta-da! Okay, so now what I can do is, making sure the bumps of the score lines are facing up, I can work my way around this piece by folding on almost all the score lines. The only score line you don't need to fold on is the first score line on those tabs. You just need to fold on the second one. So this is going to prepare us for success, teaching the tabs and the flaps where they're going to live. And that makes the gluing process a piece of cake. Okay, before we add any adhesive, I want you to double check that you have those tabs pointing north and south, and you've got these long flaps right here. I'm going to use my bookbinding glue, but again, you can use your standard favorite adhesive. I just like how secure this is and how economical it is. You know, you get a 2-ounce bottle of this, it just goes a long way. Okay, so now I have adhesive on both of the outside edges of these long flaps. I'm just going to fold them down. Give that glue just a second to bond, and it just takes literally a second. Okay, next I'm going to turn up all of those tabs, and I'm going to add some adhesive to just the outside flap here. And I'm going to turn in the tabs so now you can see the walls of the box forming. This flap is going to go up and over those tabs, and the glue will hold everything in place. Give it a second, and then rotate and repeat. So glue goes here. It's going to go up and over, wrap itself around those tabs, and you've got a gorgeous base for your box. And lo and behold, yes, indeed, the 5x7 envelope and card fits perfectly inside. So now that you know this little formula for the 5x7 box, bonus, you can make a ton of these and make gifts for your kids' teachers, for your neighbors, for anyone you love. Maybe it's a subtle hint for your daughter who lives out of the state to send you cards every now and then, loaded with cards that she can send back to you. I don't know who I could possibly be talking about. And okay, so I'm doing the same prep. No need to fold on that second score line on the tab. That was just gonna make it goofy. Return to home base. Home base is always so it's vertical, and repeat the process. Add your glue to the wings here on the sides. Press down until it stays. I find different papers take different amounts of time, like if it has texture, that sometimes can take a little longer. Now I'm gonna get real brave here. I'm gonna add adhesive to this flaps at the same time. So after you've made 1,000 boxes, you can do that. Maybe if it's your first box, just work one flap at a time. So I'm gonna turn up my little tabs, turn them in, bring that flap up and around, give it a sec, rotate, up and around, gorgeous box lid. And since I had some extra real estate on my cut apart, I was able to allocate some nice artwork for the outside of my box lid. So I'll center that up. I should probably be using a ruler because I know I'm going to come back and notice it's not straight. And, you know, again, if you have a stash of ribbon and embellishments and things you would like to use with this, that's fine. But you know what? I love the simplicity of this. This is done. So I can add my other cards and envelopes. Now I'd have 3 more cards to add because those aren't made yet. Put the lid on. And happy trails to me and to you. What a cool project. So now the magic is in your hands. You've got the knowledge, you've got the valuable instruction sheet that discloses this amazing nested formula process. And I'm guessing you have a stash of paper at home somewhere, like maybe a few sheets. So all you need to do then is it'll say papers A, B, C, and D. You decide what those papers are. Then you need E, you need 2 of paper A, and it lists it all right here on the instructions. So that will help you get started. Shop your own stash, find some coordinating papers in a theme. And then the other situation is the artwork. So if you happen to have some stamps or other printed items that have sentiments on them, cut aparts of any nature. We make cut aparts at Club Scrap every month that go into our card kits, but those are great for this too and can be adapted. So a lot of fun can be had. Of course, stamps are great for this. Now, speaking of printed cut aparts, we made a second set of this. This is a more sacred version done with our lotus theme. Isn't that pretty? Oh my goodness. It's just like the opposite of this in its beauty. These are more like praying for you, sympathy, that kind of thing. Just lovely scriptures inside, beyond grateful. May God bless you far more abundantly than you can even ask or imagine. How lovely is this? You get, again, it's the same formula, so you get the same yield. Or my friend Karen here at Club Scrap, she got her stamps from the Abundance Kit, papers from our Abundance Kit, and made this gorgeous box just with papers from the collection. She chose a print here, or you could even stamp your own background paper. She stamped all the sentiments on them. How fun is that? I know, once the train gets a rolling, you're not going to want to get off. It's just a great ride. Well, all that said, thank you so much for joining me. Now remember, we here at Club Scrap have a monthly kit club. We make a page kit and a card kit every month. Our scrapbookers make 8 layouts a month, and kind of following a similar process of sorting and trimming and then distributing the papers. And then our card club, our card makers make 12 cards a month. A lot of times they're functional cards, interactive cards, always a structure where you're going to be learning something new. And then you can follow along with me on our monthly workshop video where I'll just walk you through that whole process so you don't really have to flounder and wonder what to do with your collection when it arrives. You just download and print your instructions, follow along with my video, and magic, you get 12 cards. It's a great value, so come and check it out. You don't need to be a member to shop. Okay. That's what I've got for you. A special shout out of thanks to Kate at Volume for hosting these awesome events. As always, we appreciate you so much. And of course, my team here at Club Scrap is absolutely awesome. So thankful to have all of them too. Have a wonderful holiday season, and I'll see you next time.